really what's happening in the mental health space, which is a huge transformation being led by psychedelics. Things like ketamine infusion therapy, MDMA, psilocybin, transcranial magnetic stimulation.
What up, y'all? This is the third episode of Lessons Learned. I'm A1 with my guest here, Sebs. I'm going to let him introduce himself and let us know what he's been up to.
Yeah, what's happening, everybody? Grasso, really glad to be on this conversation with you and just to share some life lessons. My name is Sebastian. Grasso and I have been close friends since high school, freshman year. So remember English class, Mr. Chicklee, shout out to him. We had a great high school, and here we are now almost to 10 years plus later, and really glad to be having this conversation with you, man. Currently working on a couple different projects, and we can go deeper into them. But the real foundation to everything that I'm about is right now, we as humans are going through a massive transformation and a huge shift as a society. How can we show up as our best? And how can the work that I do actually make a difference in the world? Not just for me, but I'm thinking for my grandchildren down the road. Some legacy.
Nice. I like that. So what are the projects that you're involved with right now?
Cool. So the main project that I'm working with is Beyond Marketing. Beyond Marketing is a social media platform and a digital marketing firm and business development company that supports mental health providers in expanding their business. Now, I'm really proud about this because we're focusing on a very specific niche in the mental health space. We're looking at alternative treatments to depression. So we're getting away from medication. We're getting away from what's been the norm for the past 70 years plus. And we're stepping more into really what's happening in the mental health space, which is a huge transformation being led by psychedelics. Things like ketamine infusion therapy, MDMA, psilocybin, transcranial magnetic stimulation, all these different avenues in which literally the brain is being reset instead of it being instead of it relying on some sort of medication for it to really get better. It's really given the brain the natural avenue, the way it's supposed to actually work within itself to make us be really at our best.
Yeah, which I feel like we could talk about that that's a whole nother podcast almost. Right, but we should definitely touch on that today.
We'll touch on that. So that's one of the projects. Within that, there's
real quick. I want to say, I think that's a dope idea because I feel like social media is leading to all of our mental health issues.
100%.
So,
well, bro, addiction is a huge thing there right now. We're really going through, and social media, the dopamine hit, the microwave mentality that it promotes has a massive consequence. And if you think about it, it's only been about 10 years that social media has really been at the forefront. Mm-hmm. But now you got these kids that grow up with it, and that's all they know, and they're used to. Go.
I was gonna say kids, man, like this, all they know. Mm-hmm. But also our brains, they don't realize whether it's drugs or sex or alcohol or video game or whatever the hell it is. It's like it just needs more of whatever we're feeding it and allowing it to control us.
For sure. And we can go deeper into it. One thing with that is, man, we're all looking to always feel good. Everything we do is in some sort of way to feel good. And that feel good can be an instant hit that gets looked up because of the variety. Literally, social media created from a context of roulette, like at a casino. That's exciting, but that's not the way that life is on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
it can be.
So I'm sorry to sidetrack you. So what's the other
cool? The second project that I'm focusing on, it's Atta. So Atta is a yoga studio right now in South Florida. I'm in Delray Beach. And the yoga studio is much more than that. It's a mental health wellness facility. Mm-hmm. So they got everything from saunas to massage work to sound therapy to therapy, like talk therapy. And on top of that, the yoga is the foundation. The philosophy is based on the yoga foundation, on the yoga philosophy, along with all the other supplements to support somebody into really being the best. Mm-hmm. And then the following on from there is Awakening Bodies. Awakening Bodies has been a project that Lauren and I, my wife, we've been building out for about 10 years. I can give a short story to that. It started through a network marketing company that we started building back when I was 21. She was about 18. And fast forward till today, now it's a retreat facility. Now it's a retreat center. So we host retreats. The idea of the retreats are to bring people into exploring what intuitive living is all about. And then from there, what high performance can do for somebody's life. And ultimately, we believe that if somebody's getting some sort of breakthrough, I mean, we read books, we watch movies, all these things teach us something. But if we're not actually putting the lessons to work, those lessons can be easily forgotten. And high performance is all about being able to create a project, something in the real world, tangible reality. And then within the real world, we can put those lessons, those insights, those breakouts into actual use.
Mm-hmm. That's dope. So it sounds like they're all pretty much connected in some way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let's get right into it. I want to hear
Sure.
like, maybe your personal experience with personal growth and, you know, sticking to these routines and the things you learn. Like you just said, like these lessons only stick if we practice them.
100%. Yeah. I mean, bro, I can start with back when I was 21 years old. No. Let's fast forward a little bit, then we can retrack if needed. When I was about 25, 26 years old, I was at that time selling solar panels up in Jersey. Had been doing it for about 2.5 years, almost 3 at the moment. And I was, you know, in the typical sense of success, in what I thought success was, I was there. I had a great home that I was living at in Asbury Park, was hitting up music festivals with friends, had a girlfriend, like everything seemed good. However, behind closed doors, there was anxiety. I was disconnected from Lauren, so much so that it led to us having to take some time away from each other to really see if we were supposed to be together. So it was really confusing because here I am, I'm looking at the checklist of what I thought success was, and they were all checked off, but fulfillment was missing. There was a sense of connection that wasn't there. And it was in that moment where I started to really question, okay, what am I here to do? I thought that if I were to get these things, and it would have had me feel happy and joyous and present, and that's not the case. And from there, I started to really dive deep into coaching. I'd been doing personal development work since I was probably about 2021 when I first started network marketing, which opened up this lid that I didn't know I didn't have. And I'll just pause that because that right there's a huge lesson, knowing that there are things right now that we don't know that we don't know. Mm-hmm. And for anybody listening, if you're trying to figure out what's one of those things that you don't know that you don't know, you don't know. You don't know. It's one of those things that we call blind spots. They live back here, but it's also one of those things that we as humans, we're really smart. Something happens where we're young, we put up a wall so that thing doesn't hurt us again. And now here we are 20 years later, we still got that wall in front of us. We don't even know it exists because we created it when we're really young. That's the blind spot. So really discovering what those blind spots are started to really open up my perspective of life. I grew up in Colombia, came into the States when I was 9. So like entrepreneurship, business, personal development, personal growth, like all of these things were not part of my DNA. They were not something that I was taught about.
Like how your parents responded to that.
Man, funny. My parents were very much against it. Again, coming from first generation family here in the States, my dad came here when he was, that was probably about 1997. And then my mom and I came for the first time in 99. Before that, my dad grew up as a family in the hometown that had the only store. So my dad literally at 11, 12, 13 years old was waking up at 3:00 in the morning to manually milk the cows, bottle the milk, and then deliver the milk to people's homes before he went to school.
How did I never know this? How the fuck did I never know this shit?
Yeah, bro, crazy. And then he would come home from school, he would feed the pigs, do what he had to do at the farm, and then go do whatever else he wanted to do.
But wait, so hold up. It sounds like you did have it in your DNA though.
The work ethic.
Well, didn't you just say that they own their own store or whatever?
So my grandparents, my parents. Yeah, my grandparents.
But I guess like the ideology when you're moving to a new country is like, you know, go to school, get a good job type stuff.
I mean, bro, if you think about it, it's only really been a somewhat recent shift into entrepreneurship again.
I mean, definitely, especially with social media.
Yeah, I mean, dude, think about the 50s and 60s. Someone could easily go work at a company and they were set for the next 40 years. Like that was good. Somebody could work at a restaurant as a waiter and be able to sustain their family. That's not the case anymore.
You know what I heard too is that like now we're living long enough to realize all these traps that we're stuck in.
So powerful, bro, because we're not just we're no longer being driven by the things that are externally outside of us. Information is now available to all of us thanks to things like technology that in the past were only available for a select few.
Not to mention like information and just being able to communicate with people in other circumstances.
Right, 100%.
That's why I think like moving forward, although there's still a lot of division, I think we're all starting to realize that like we're more connected than different, you know?
I mean, bro, being in the coaching space and working with a lot of different backgrounds and working right now with the clinics that we work with, different providers, different doctors, different staff members. Look, we're all the same in the fact that we're all different. And yeah, there's different details and there's different minutia that obviously we're all different in, but patterns are all the same. And if we can start to really understand what those patterns are, it starts to give us new insights into who we are, why we do what we do, why the people around us do what they do, or why they don't do what they should do. It's just about really understanding who we are. And back to what you're pointing at, that information is now available. And then we can share that with others. Something as simple as a podcast. If you think back to this alone, to do this 10, 15 years ago, you needed a studio, you needed a whole team, you needed someone to produce, to edit. Now, here we are. We got mics set up and we hit record on a screen. And now this is going to be able to be shared across the world.
Yeah, that is crazy.
It's amazing.
That is crazy. And just the fact that it could spark the thought in someone else's head.
Yeah. And bro, that's why I do what I do, because back when I was, again, 21 years old, the idea of being a business owner was implanted in my brain. At first it was unrealistic, but it took some time for that seed to really germinate. So all it takes is literally that, an idea. And the work that I do, and my mission is to just be a support to somebody. I don't have the answers. When people come to our retreats, that's the first thing we tell them when we're going through coaching sessions. If someone's coming to me for answers, look, I'm not the right person. I'm not looking to give you answers. I don't know what's right for you. You have your own experience. I have my own experience. I'll share what my story's been and what I've learned. And if anything resonates and it lands with you, sure. But I think that's right now in the world. A lot of people are out there giving advice. And sure, they may be well-meaning, but we all have different experiences. We all have different choices.
You know, I was going to ask you this too, because you see a lot of people that say like they're a life coach or whatever. I feel like it's like the step, like, all right, maybe everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. And then next is like a life coach. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I think a lot of people are skeptical about that.
Yeah. So, and bro, a lot of people learn something, and the moment they learn something, they think they're ready to go teach it. And honestly, a lot of it has to do with the way in which our brains right now are being taught. We think that all we got to do is we search something, we have instant results. Okay, well, that means that if I learn something, I can go instantaneously share it with somebody else. Nah. A farmer only becomes a farmer through the actual planting of seeds. They don't just step on a farm and say, I'm a farmer. No, they got to go and till the ground. They got to go and actually sow the seed, and then they got to go and actually take care of that seed. Only when that seed becomes a fruit, that's when they say, okay, I'm a farmer. But they have to go through the process. And I think at the end of the day, we humans, one of the things that really drives us, and I would say it's a reason why you do these podcasts, is to help other people. But I think we jump the gun. We think that the moment I learn something, I'm going to go teach it to somebody. But have I even embodied the lesson yet? Have I experienced what I'm teaching somebody before I can actually go ahead and teach it?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely do that all the time. I guess we all do, but
we all do to some extent. And look, I think part of wisdom is knowing when to listen and knowing when to actually go and teach.
Yeah.
It's like the proverb. It's like the saying goes, when student is ready, the teacher will appear. So for me, it's okay, how much am I actually opened to being the student so I can have somebody come into my life to show me the way? Successful people always say, and success, again, I put success in parentheses because that can mean thousands of things to different people. But ultimately, if you're looking to get somewhere, the beautiful thing about it is someone's more than likely has already done it. So go seek direction. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Someone's done it. Success leaves clues. Go speak with somebody that's done what you're looking to do and see what you can take over from their experience and then put it into your own.
So what do you think is like a myth about life coaches or going to see one?
I think the biggest myth is that these people have answers for you. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people that get involved in the coaching space, whether it's someone as a coach or someone as an attendee, someone that, go ahead.
let me ask you. All right. So
Yeah.
do you think that it's more of like being able to like, you're obviously some people get stuck in their head and now you're able to see it from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that plays like a big part in it? Because even if we're talking about sports or something, some of the best coaches aren't great athletes, but they can see that your formation is wrong or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Mm-hmm.
you think it's like something along those lines, or
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bro, it's like,
or
it's, and bringing
talking
it to sports,
someone
because I think
through
it's,
it, or making them ask themselves these certain questions, or
it's when you can really, and just keep the sports example, because it's so key. Because if someone's, let's say I played soccer growing up, so when I was on the field playing soccer, it was much harder for me to see the pass that could have been done than someone in the stands that has a full spectrum, the full view of the field.
that's a great point. Also, that's a great
So that answers your question. Yeah, I think in the coaching space, and not just coaching, but just in general, if someone's seeking
point.
for some support, there's massive value in being able to take your way, not out of the field, but to have that perspective to say, hey, here I am now. I'm in the field right here. If I were to take a step back, I can actually see the field. And now I'm not just myopic in here, but I can actually now do this. And I can realize that there's something over here that would be very supportive, but maybe I'm just like this, or maybe I'm like this. And if we're like this, then like, okay, we got to even realize that if we're like this, we got to do this to begin with. But most people are even like this.
Yeah.
It's a process.
I was watching this podcast. Have you ever heard of Andrew Huberman?
Amazing.
You ever watch his stuff? So
amazing.
Anyone that doesn't know, I don't think his title is necessarily neurobiologist, something to do with the brain, but he's a teacher at Harvard, teaches about the brain. It's so dope, but he has guests on. There's this one about trauma and basically about therapy, and how they were saying that a good therapist will basically just help you think differently or change your perspective, because we tend to keep running the same problem the same exact way in our head. And then like one time someone might say one thing that'll like spark something. And you're like, wait a second, maybe you're right. Maybe it isn't all my fault. Maybe I'm just blaming myself, or whatever the case is. So I thought that was pretty cool when he said that.
Dude, it's being able to take yourself out of the play and to be able to see the play for itself. It has massive differences. It can make a massive impact. And I'll give you an example. For example, ketamine infusion therapy being largely used right now with a lot of veterans. And if you just put yourself in a veteran's shoes, killing somebody is not a natural thing. Seeing that happen can have a lot of deep trauma that just builds up on itself. What happens with something like ketamine infusion therapy, as someone's going through treatment with the right setting and the right support, that vet that maybe was so caught up in what he did or maybe what he saw is now able to have a step back, take a step back. Instead of having to be the one in the scene, they're able to see the scene. And it relates with what you just said. It helps them realize like, oh, it actually, maybe it wasn't my fault. Maybe I, even to just give the example, maybe I did pull the trigger, but I pulled the trigger because I was taught to pull the trigger from all my training. It's not necessarily my fault. I am responsible for being the one to do this, but that's what I was taught. And as a vet, to be able to say, okay, it's not my fault. I'm not the wrong person. I'm not an evil person. I just did what I was told. Takes a lot of weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
And just think for us in our lives, if you were to take a look at something that's happening in your life right now, instead of saying it's my fault, but say, okay, how can I be responsible for this? Maybe some weight that's on your shoulders can be lifted off. Because again, we're human. We all do take actions. But at the end of the day, we're here to help people out. And yeah, maybe some actions haven't been conducive to that. That's okay. We're human.
Yeah.
Take a step back and say that.
Also, we're all being pushed in these certain directions. Join the military. How many times have we seen, they come to our school, join the military.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, they end up making it a good thing. I'll give you medals for like killing more people than your teammates did or whatever. And we could say that about a lot of things, like food, entertainment, like sex, all these things. We're constantly being influenced by outside sources and even validated in some senses.
I mean, bro, there's incentives. There's incentives for some of those actions to take place. And I mean,
Exactly.
you say medals. It's medals in the army. It's a huge example. The more people you save, the different medal you get. The more enemies you kill, the different medals you get. So there's incentives to it, and it's really understanding.
This goes back to the whole like dopamine thing, and I guess the other chemicals. I'm not a scientist or anything like that.
Yeah.
but as we know, our brain is set up in these ways for to give us a reward for certain things.
Which is really powerful, because if you can really understand, again, back to the patterns, if you can understand those patterns, you can then set your day up in a way where you get that reward without having to go and rely on something like coffee, for example. Because look, I love my coffee, but there was a time in my life where coffee was a way that I would feel good about my day. Yeah. This went from being a tool into me being used by the tool. And if I didn't have my coffee at a particular day by a certain time, oh man, forget that my day wasn't started.
And also we use it as an excuse. Like, I'm just being an asshole because I didn't drink my coffee today.
It's so key, dude. So key. It's so true. And back to that whole responsibility aspect of it. If we were to really take responsibility for that, can I really say that I'm being a dick because I haven't had my coffee yet? You can say that, but again, now are you using the tool, or is the tool using you?
All right, let's talk about awakening bodies a little bit.
Sure. What do you want to talk about into that?
I mean, I guess, like, why'd you even start it?
Cool. So it started as a way to continue to expand the message of health. When it first started through network marketing, we're working with a company called Vima. If you guys are anyone watching Burr, or maybe any of that, it sparks something. It really was all focused on how can we now take health from an energy drink standpoint and have it be a healthy energy drink, not something that creates holes in your stomach like Red Bull and all these other ones, which literally that's what it does. So Awakening Bodies was a way to let's continue to spread this message of health. And it was a workout boot camp. So we had workouts every single Saturday morning in Point Pleasant, 9 a.m., 9 to 11. That was the time. And people would come out. Free boot camps. Lauren is a personal trainer. That's what she loves to do. She's been doing that pretty much since her whole life, really. High school, all of her high school, she was going to trade school for physical therapy and for personal training. So when Awakening Bodies, really the inception of it came through to just give people an avenue to be healthy, and to help us in sharing the message of what Vima and Verve was all about. Once the company went through its challenges, it's still up and running. But for us at the time, we knew it was time to move on to something else. So Awakening Bodies took a little bit of a backdrop. It was always being built out between Lauren and I. We always talked about it. Retreat centers was something that consistently started coming up years ago. And now it's coming to fruition. We had one in March of this year. We have another one coming up at the end of the year in December. Retreat.
A retreat? So
yeah, retreat.
What did it entail?
Oh, I love it, bro. We literally were just finishing some things up right before our call today. So the retreat is a 4 to 5 day experience. The whole idea of it is how can we now create a safe space for transformation and growth? How can we bring people together, a bunch of strangers, to share space, again, 4 to 5 days. And now on top of that, how can we start to look at our lives from a different context? Not better, different. We always want to start to explore in our lives right now, what we're doing today. There's different ways to go about the things that we do. And we always say, how can we step away from better, from good, from bad, but just look at it from different? Because what's good for you may be bad for me and vice versa. Very, very subjective. So we want to take a look at it from an objective standpoint. What works versus what doesn't work. Through Awakening Bodies, we start to explore a lot of conversation focused on these blind spots, things that we've done in the past that we continue to do that we don't even know why we do. We're human. And through those breakouts, through those conversations, through those insights, we can now start to create something new for ourselves in our lives.
Yeah. See what you mean. So how much does that cost at a retreat? I'm curious.
That's a great question. So the retreat right now is worth so we're playing a couple different ideas with this, because in the world of business, a lot is shifting. And one of the things that we always talk about is about giving people personal choice. So choosing for themselves what it is that they want to, for example, invest into something like a personal development workshop. Right now, the price point that we've chosen is $2,000. What we are playing with, however, and a lot of companies are doing this right now, at least progressive entrepreneurship, that they're giving almost like a payment plan, a minimum to a maximum. It's not something we're doing yet with the retreat, but it's something that we are moving towards to give people the freedom to choose how much they think something is worth. And then we also want to give people the ability to sponsor somebody. So like right now, for example, with the retreat, part of every single person that comes, part of that money goes into a pool. And within that pool, if someone wants to make it to the retreat and they just don't have the funds, then we can go into that pool in scholarship.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that concept.
We're looking to give everybody the opportunity, man. This one of the things that for me growing up was one of the biggest challenges was money. And now it's how can I play a part in if somebody is really committed to their life and really showing up as the best version of themselves, what can we do to support that person moving forward? Mm-hmm. Somebody came into my life when I was about 25 years old he wasn't giving me money by any means, but he was able to support me financially, at least for on like a loan term. Yeah. And that person made a massive difference in my life because some things that I couldn't do, had it not been for him, I wouldn't have been able to do. He opened up literally worlds. He gave me wings to be able to fly.
Yeah. So with the Awakening Bodies, you said that like there was a workout, especially in the beginning. That's still a part of the retreat?
No, not so much. There is a factor of movement. And this is one of the key things when it comes to creating state. And by state, I mean, how do I feel? Our physiology is one of the main things. And even you right now listening, if you catch yourself with your shoulders down and your head back and your head down, this is going to affect your physiology than if you show up with your shoulders back.
Bro, don't make me bring up that podcast again, man.
Which one?
Andrew Huberman, man. We're just talking about the brain because he's saying how, like, for instance, putting our body in certain positions is signaling our brain to do certain things. Like, an easy one is when you're laying down, your brain is triggered to go to sleep. Like it's starting to release certain chemicals that are like, all right, I'm going to sleep now.
Yep.
So in the same way, I don't remember like all the things, but I remember him saying about how like leaning your head forward tells your brain, like these different postures.
That it's so to answer your question, the importance is how can we bring now that our physical being, how are we showing up? And again, you can take a look at a lot of different things. Are you frowning? Do you consistently catch yourself with this borrowing of your eyebrows? Because if that's the case, this is signaling your body that you're stressed out. Okay, well, let's just give this thing a little massage so it relaxes and chills out.
That's a huge part, even too, just like the tenseness of our muscles.
Yeah.
It's creating like our whole body to be stressed anyway. It's like when your back hurts. And your day just sucks because you have to do all these things that you normally do, but your back hurts. So you're like, fuck this.
Yep.
In the same sense, we don't realize that like our eyebrow being so tense, like that's why it feels good when someone gives us a massage.
Yeah.
Releasing the tension.
Yeah.
It's affecting
us. So we bring this factor of movement. There is a gym, so we did work out, but it's not like, okay, we're going to come and work out at the retreat. No. We're going to be active. We're going to do something called kinergy, which is the idea of tapping into our body from doing everything like the motion of water to acting like fire. And if you think about that, it's like, if you think about how water moves, it's very fluid. Okay. How can we incorporate that into our day to day? How can we incorporate that into the movement of my body? Let's think of fire. Fire is it's also very fluid, but it's much more sharp. Okay, how can I bring that into my day to day? And then what's I gonna do for, let's say, a phone call, let's say a meeting? All of it affects itself. There's a reason why a lot of people, Tony Robbins is huge with this. You got to prime yourself. Are you priming your body before your day even begins? Movement.
I was thinking of him when I was just saying about how the brain is getting certain signals when we're sitting a certain way or whatever. Because you know how he would always say to do those power stances or whatever, stuff like that. Yeah. And then there's like science behind it that is actually like telling our body like, all right, I'm ready to take this on, which I think is pretty cool. Small
little things, small hinges can move big doors. And something as simple as having a power stance, which there is so much science. There's a TED talk that's on this. Just go look it up. Look up power stance TED talk and it'll come up. There's a 25-minute conversation of this woman giving examples of athletes, now specifically Olympic athletes who, have to be of the highest level of performance. And they're teaching these things. They teach. And if you look at it, some athletes they're intuitively standing like this.
Yeah.
Because it's literally training their body, their brain. You brought it before, their brain to actually be in a power stance. Victory.
All right. I swear this is my last plug of that podcast. I watched a different one the other day. I think the lady was the head of NYU. Essentially, just to like give you the breakdown real quick, like basically exercising is good for your brain. And it helps your memory. So basically, she was talking about how her parents, one of them is starting to have dementia, and that getting your blood flowing is like washing the toxins out of your brain. It's releasing certain chemicals. But then she starts talking about the hippocampus, which I don't know, type it into Google, guys. But I guess that has to do a lot with memory. And basically, the studies show that the more that you're active, the more that your brain is able to like retain its health.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So like it just makes me think of like someone like LeBron who's constantly working out. Maybe that's why his brain works so good on the court also.
100%. I
mean,
like
it ties together.
There's with people that are dealing with Alzheimer's, and what happens with Alzheimer's is the brain starts to get inflamed, and as it starts to get inflamed, it starts to touch on the part of the brain that has people literally forget who they are, right? Alzheimer's, over time, it gets worse and worse. The interesting thing about it is if we were just to give the body extra oxygen, that inflammation wouldn't happen. But I digress, because what I'm getting at is with people with Alzheimer's, they always say, read. Do something that's going to be active for the body, because the brain, if it gets caught up in just a typical routine over and over again, then it goes on autopilot. And for someone dealing with Alzheimer's, the first thing that they recommend to do is do something that's going to have the brain be creative. That way, the brain doesn't just do the same things over and over again, but the brain starts to do new things. And in that, it promotes brain growth, neurons. Back to things like TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, another modality very similar to ketamine.
Wait,
it's literally transcranial magnetic stimulation.
So what's that?
It's think of like a helmet, and the helmet itself goes on a particular part of the brain, used a lot right now for depression, specifically people that have been taking medication who haven't seen long-term results. Long-term, really key, because somebody can get 3 to 6 months of results, but then the brain gets used to that medication. So on to the next, rinse and repeat. And then 10 years of that, the brain is used to having the chemical there. What happens? Chemical imbalance if the medication isn't taken. Things like TMS, instead of going through that route, through magnetic stimulation to particular parts of the brain, it helps the neurons reconnect. Every single neuron is supposed to connect to itself. Every single time you eat something that you like, neuron. Every single time you're going to say something, neuron. Like our brains are doing this instinctively, automatically. We don't have to think about it. But because of, let's say, environment, those the connections stop being as powerful as it could. Something like TMS allows for those connections to take place again. So if we can really be active, and this is something that we focus in a lot, how can we not get to rock bottom to take new actions on? Because once somebody has a heart attack and they get back home from the hospital, like, okay, I'm going to change my diet. But that person had been dealing with blood pressure for a long time. Why did it have to get to them going to the hospital, almost dying, to say, okay, I'm going to make a difference in my diet, my lifestyle?
Yeah. So how does it even work though?
Which one? Transcranial, TMS?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the doctor finds a specific part of the brain that they want to focus in on. Example, with depression, it's right up here. So they find the right spot. The way they find it is they do a couple of different tests in the brain. With the moment that your thumb starts to twitch automatically without somebody choosing to move the thumb, that's when they know, okay, we're in the right spot.
Wait, so what does that have to, is it always a thumb? I'm curious. I don't know how much you know about this, but.
Sure. It's just the way that it is always typically the thumb, because it's just what's connected to the brain.
Because so what makes me curious about it is, they talk about, what is it, like chi, energy or whatever, and they say there's certain pressure points.
Now we're talking Eastern philosophy. I love it.
I want to say that it's like somewhere on the thumb is one thumb, or like right in between or something like that. I don't know. I've done very minimal research on this, but it makes me think, and that makes me think even more. Also, just like what is it? Acupressure?
Acupuncture?
Acupressure? No, not acupuncture. The other one where it's like the
Acupressure.
bottom.
Yeah, like right here. This is one right here for a headache.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like curious. Maybe there is a little more than we're led to believe.
Oh, dude. I mean, if someone is if this is a conversation that you want to explore deeper, look up Mantak Chia. There is a book that he wrote called Healing Through the Tao, TAO. And he's breaking down how there are meridians, there are nodes, NODES, all throughout our body. Our bodies are literally currents of electricity.
Yeah.
That's why it's things like stress, if they're not taken care of, they create clumps. Too many clumps.
We're about to make this a 5-hour podcast.
Too many clumps over time that's what leads to somebody not being healthy. So yeah, there's energy centers in our body that if we just take care of, look, a lot of diseases could go away. But all of this information, and I don't want to go into this route too much because it's maybe for a different time. But I'll leave it at this.
Episode 2.
Yeah. I'll leave it at this with this context. There's a lot of therapy that already exists, a lot of modalities that already exists to support the healing of a lot things that let's say the main media source says it's incurable. There's a lot of ways in which this is already being treated. There's just no profit on that.
It's funny you said that. I was just gonna say, once you finish that, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's more a competition than it is a conspiracy of, like you just said, there's no profit between these other things. These people want their business model, medicine, whatever, to succeed. So it's really not that shocking that like these old ways, the holistic version of health is like not even considered a real thing in American culture. You know?
Well, dude, I mean, on that note, I think it's extremely powerful for a doctor when they go through their 8 to 12 years of schooling. They have literally they have a weekend where they learned about food. Now think about that. Food is not just things that you just put into your body. Food is information. If you're going to go and eat McDonald's for a year, your body's going to react a lot different than if it eats something healthy. It's information, but it's not really taught because we don't live in the system right now in place is not a healthcare system. In my opinion, it's a sick care system. People need to be sick in order for people to go to the hospital. So people need to stay sick. And again, we're going down this route because I think it's really valid that right now in the world of today, especially after the past 2 years, we got to take responsibility for our health. If we don't take responsibility for our health, nobody else will. They'll take responsibility for having you ingest things that may keep you in a particular way. It just might not be healthy.
Yeah. Which it's funny that you even bring this up because it makes me think about gut health, which you brought up to me first in my life. And I just kind of back then, it's like you need to be ready for the information to come. And like back then I'm like, like kombucha, whatever, gut health, fuck that. But then the more that I research it, the more I learn how it controls our body, controls our brain, our thoughts, and it craves certain things. For anyone that doesn't know, it's like the microbiome, the germs or whatever, the little organisms inside of our body.
Yep.
There's good ones and there's bad ones. Let's just, to make it simple, bad foods create the bad ones. The good foods that we all know are like good foods create the good gut health. Yep. So it's literally affecting how we act and how we go out through our day.
It's again, we're going through a massive transformation right now. Like human society as a whole is shifting completely. We're no longer we realize now that we don't have to go externally to find a lot of the things that we're looking to get free from. We just got to go internally. You talk about the mind-gut connection. It's been studied millions of times. It's been studied for a long time. But again, the dissemination of information is very specifically done up until now because we have things like this. Mind-gut connection.
Along those same terms, it's like everyone else should be doing their own research. Just use this as a spark, because that's what happened with me. Like, I don't trust what everyone says, but it piques my interest, and then I want to look into it my own. With that being said, I think it's like the gut, the heart, and the mind are all connected by the vagus nerve.
Yes. Oh, bro, you're doing some
Which
you're doing some research here.
it's literally connected.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
there's even studies that say like that people like ate chocolate or something like that, and then they found that the gut was basically influencing them to go to the store and buy more chocolate, stuff like that.
Yep.
So like it goes way deeper than we even realize.
Yep. And again, it's intentionally done, which is why it's so key for people to really question. And I'm so glad you just brought what you said up, because don't take anything of what I'm saying as being truth.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
not.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean,
what I'm saying is not right. That's just my opinion.
And plus, this is lessons learned, right?
Right.
So I want people to like use these lessons that we're bringing up right now to further their own. Mm-hmm. So, it's like we literally have Osmosis Jones living inside of us. That entire like city.
It's literally what it is, though. That's literally what it is. And bro, if this body that we're walking through, like, we are living life through this body. We are not the body, but we experience life through this body. Some people have all 5 senses. Some people have some of them, not all of them, right? So if we are the ones that are lucky enough to have all senses, what are we doing to not take care of this thing? Yeah. If you know your car needs high octane fuel to run efficiently, but you go and put the lowest kind of fuel, you're not going to question, well, my car isn't running well. Mm-hmm. You know it's not running well because you put in the worst gas when it needs the highest gas. Yeah. So why do you question that? Maybe the food I'm eating, is it really going to impact me in some sort of way?
That's a metaphor that really affected me the most too. I remember Mr. Dirk, shout out, what up? Woo! I remember he said it's like a car. Our body is like a car. And he's like, if you push it to the max every day, if you're on the highway going 120, pushing it as hard as it can go every single time, how long do you think the car is going to last? Especially if you don't take care of the oil, the this, the that, like the proper maintenance. And it really made me think about like us, like, all right, I want to go hard all day, right? I want to go to work. I want to come home, work on my own shit, fuck sleep, all this. Let me just eat some pizza because it's quick to eat real quick and whatever. But in the same sense, if we're not taking care of our body, if we're not giving it some rest, if we're just pushing it to the brink every single time, man, we're going to break down. And I think that's like something that a lot of us are doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with comparing. We're comparing ourselves to what somebody else is doing. So because this person is up all day long, all night long, and because this person's saying that hustle until you die, you sleep when you're dead. If you're comparing your experience to that person, you're going to take your actions based on what they're doing. That's again, question everything. Yeah. Question everything. Because look, I'm a full believer that you're going to get out of life will give you exactly what you put out into it. So yes, there is something to bringing the best of yourself forward, putting time and effort into it, really bringing in sweat equity. But if you catch yourself up at 4:00 in the morning and no rest, not taking care of your body, only because the person that you're competing against in your mind is doing the same thing, look, you're going to find yourself at a hospital bed at some point in time wondering, how did I get here?
Yeah. One thing about Dragon Ball Z,
Ooh,
I love Dragon Ball Z.
So many lessons in Dragon Ball Z.
Goku, although he trains, he eats a ton of food, but he always sleeps. Which I got to remind myself sometimes. Like, if Goku could find time to sleep, I could find time to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, bro, especially now in the culture in which we're in, we live in a culture where we think the more we do, the more we do, the more we do, the more we get. But the idea of that, what we forget is that we may even get something. We're missing the key of who are we being. If we can really focus on who we're being first, actions follow from who you're being. Yeah. People get caught up in just doing.
And you know what? It's like that one expression, like, be the person that like your younger self wanted to be. And I think we all forget that, whether it's about dreams or just like being nice to people or all of the above.
Simple things, bro. Simple things. I mean, they always say, if just look at kids. Kids can give so many different lessons in life as adults, because kids are living life. We as adults, we're living life through particular perceptions, interpretations, shoulds, coulds. Kids are just living. So there's a lot of lessons that we can take from kids on the just who are we going to be like, really? And
Yeah.
something just being kind could open up huge worlds of possibility.
Yeah. And even just like being afraid of judgment. I feel like little kids don't care.
Hmm.
They just
Hmm.
don't care. They just do whatever they want, explore wherever they want to explore.
Yep.
It's kind
Yep.
of cool to think about.
Yeah. I mean,
Yo,
bro, now we're stepping into more of the spiritual side because, and I love it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I also want to talk about like the yoga side of it too,
Let's
the
go.
yoga studio, and because I feel like that all ties into this as well. And that's another
100%.
that's another one of those things where like our society is almost taught that like, oh, yoga is like for girls, or yoga is
Mhm.
only for certain type of people, healthy people, or whatever it is. But like the more that I do my own research or practice yoga or even just stretching, because like I've
Mhm.
only
Mhm.
been a part of a yoga class like 2 or 3 times, and you literally feel renewed.
Mhm.
You know, and it's just like sports, you know, like they would always make a stretch before practice or before a game or something, but like there
Mhm.
was never really the connection between like I think that yoga goes a lot deeper because it has to do with strengthening our mind.
For sure. For sure.
I'm starting
Well,
to realize that it has to do with like the blood flow.
yep.
It's like, when you're upside
Yep.
down and all the blood rushes to your head.
Yep.
And then let's say you turn to your side and do this yoga pose. Now the blood is flowing that way. And
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it's like a lost art.
For sure. For sure. And it's a lost art in the Western society. I think a lot of it has to do because Western medicine right now is very scientifically based.
Mhm.
And I get it. Like, hey, if it wasn't for some of the things that we have today in the world, we wouldn't be able to be where we're at. Like,
Yeah.
a full
Or live
acknowledgement
this long.
or live this long, full
Yep.
acknowledgement. I don't think that it's about one or the other. I think it's about
Mhm.
one and the other. How
Exactly.
can we
See,
bridge both of them?
I feel like it's more like the modern medicine, um, like pills and whatever
Mhm.
should be the last resort.
Yeah.
But instead, like you were saying before about like the blood pressure,
Yep.
people like they just keep like pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off until they have a heart attack. And then it's like, fuck, the only thing I can do now is to get surgery or be put on this medicine.
Yep. Well, yep. And to bring that into yoga because it connects really well and the conversation we've been having, people think that if someone's sick, all they got to do is separate the sickness from the healthy part of the body. Just think about how backwards that is. So you're telling me that if my hand hurts, I'm going to separate my hand from my body so it doesn't hurt. It's not about separating the sickness from the wellness. No, it's about integrating the sickness and the wellness so that the wellness comes into the picture and takes care of the sickness. Our bodies are brilliant things. If we get a cut, maybe 3 to 4 days, depending on the actual severity of the cut, the body will heal itself.
Yeah.
Right. So the
Which
body
we
does
take for granted so much.
completely
It's crazy
because
to think about.
we're so focused on external. So
Yeah.
focused on external. I'll share my story with yoga because I think it connects really well and for the sake of everybody's time. So when I was 23 years old, a girl that I dated, Samantha Franco, God bless, rest in peace,
Mhm.
got diagnosed with cancer. Within 9 months, synovial sarcoma took over her body and took her life. Now, at that time, confused because I met her playing soccer. She was part of the OCC soccer girls soccer team. How did a 23-year-old girl who was super healthy within 9 months
Mhm.
her body deteriorate? What happened? She was active. She was eating healthy. What occurred? Now we're talking about trauma. Trauma comes into the picture in big ways. I don't know why it happened. That's a question that I'll never know. I kept myself up at night a long time years ago trying to figure out
Yeah.
the reasons why. And hey,
I mean, we
God's
we
got a
could
plan.
speculate, but that's
We
a
can
whole
speculate.
nother
Yep.
that's a whole nother
Yep.
thing.
Yep. There's a world beyond the physical that I dare not have explained because it'll take away its magic. It happened. It happened. From there, however, I started to question and really question what could have happened that caused that for her. And I started to really learn about meditation, about yoga, about the stress. All cancer is an accumulation of stress over time that just starts to expand on itself, trying to kill itself, which is the paradox of it. Zach Bush talks a lot more into that. If that calls your attention, go check him out.
You put me onto him too.
He's
Actually, when you first showed me him, I'm like, this guy's such a nerd. And then I like stumbled across something else where I'm like, holy shit, this is everything I've been looking into lately. which ties back to like the gut health, the pesticides, which is killing our gut health, which is killing our planet, the oil industry, petrochemicals. Don't get me started on this bullshit.
It's beautiful, bro. Thank you for bringing all that into the picture because it's huge. For anybody listening, consequences to our actions are huge. And information like what Gross was sharing with Zach Bush and Andrew Huberman, all of these things can literally have and this is going to be extreme, a life or death consequence.
Which, you know what, like the goal would be to maybe one day get to interview them.
Yeah.
I feel like both of them don't get enough shine anyway.
For sure. Well, there's a reason for that because a lot of the information they're sharing is actually leading to curing, not just covering up of symptoms.
And as we were saying before, like you got to be ready to receive the information.
Very true. Very true.
I'm sorry. So you were saying about Zach Bush.
So Zach Bush started to learn about integration of it all. We're not separating the body, trying to find what's sick to then fix what's sick. No, integrate the whole body as a whole. And we can look at it from many contexts. We can look at it from literally a physical context. We can look at it from an emotional context. A lot of what trauma is the psyche separates what happened from the whole body. And now that person is living in a fragmented reality. The thing that happened in the past that caused the trauma is now to the side. When something comes in and presses the button, that thing gets reactivated. Now I'm going through a trigger point. So it's not about separating it. We can look at it from a spiritual context as well. And I mean, spirituality is a conversation that's always touched deeply in my heart because I started to realize that you and I are one and the same. Mm-hmm. What I do in my life will have an impact in your life. Even if you that's listening right now that I may never know, our actions are interrelated.
Butterfly effect.
It's and here's the thing, like it's scientifically proven. Mm-hmm. Like this is why it's so amazing to think about this and to really be present to. And again, don't take what I'm saying as truth. Go do some research. Look up Dr. Quantum. Start to understand that there is a difference between an electron reacting the way it does when it's being viewed at and not. Like science has shown this.
Even with cameras too, right? Don't they use cameras in that experiment?
Yeah.
Which is weird to think about. Like we got one, we both have one on us right now. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have two because my phone is facing me too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting. Like even someone can do an experiment. Maybe you're having a call with somebody. Try hitting recording and then see if the way you show up on that conversation changes. Mm-hmm.
No,
but most people it does.
It's definitely a thing. Because even what I was thinking of is like whenever I do these podcasts, the second half is always so much better. I think it's because like we forget that we're even like recording right now. We're just talking.
Yep. There's a ramp up period to it all. Mm-hmm. Ramp up here. So back to yoga real quick to bring back Atta into the picture. Mm-hmm. When I started to really understand these different contexts, started to learn and started to really dive deep into the Eastern philosophy of medicine, which is things like Qigong, things like looking and understanding about Qi and your meridian points, things like yoga. And you got to, again, remember that all of these things all came from one place. It was only through time that things started to get separated. Mm-hmm. So just as a side note, because it all started from one place alone. Yeah. Starting to understand the Eastern philosophy of medicine, things like yoga. I mean, we see the Western culture sees the asanas, which is the poses, warrior one, warrior two. Like they see these things as being yoga. What most people never know is that is one limb out of 8. Mm. So what a lot of the Western world thinks is all yoga is a small part of what actual yoga is. 8 parts to it. The poses in and of themselves is a direct access to start to explore stress, start to explore the mind, start to really impact things like blood flow. It is all connected, but that's just one of the ways to go about it. It has massive impact on the body to be able to touch your toes. A lot of people, it's like, oh, can you touch your toes? Like, it doesn't matter. No, if you can't touch your toes, that means your lumbar back is tight. That means your hamstrings aren't actually able to perform at their best capacity because they're like a rubber band that's been so unused or maybe used too much without proper treatment that now they're like this.
One thing I want to say on that is what I'm starting to notice is like, yes, I stretch. Yes, I work out. But I don't think that I allow myself to stretch enough before like we try to stay on a schedule, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm doing chest on Mondays, let's say. Mm-hmm. I started to notice that, you know, when you're too tight, your shoulders start to curl in. We start to get that really bad posture.
Yep.
So I started to notice that.
This is up the heart.
I mean, that's a good point. I never even thought of that part. Yep. But that's true. And our lungs too, you know. Mm-hmm. But I started to notice that like I'm not allowing myself enough days in between
Hmm.
to like get back to like normal mobility
Mm-hmm.
before I start lifting again. And then it like just compounds the tightness.
Yep.
So just like how you were just saying, that's in my personal experience in one way,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, dude, and again, understanding how things operate makes a huge difference because when I first started working out, I thought that the muscle growth was happening when I was benching. What I did not know was that the muscle growth was happening when I was resting. I needed to break the muscle through the actual lift to then have that muscle repair itself. And when it repairs itself, when I'm resting, not when I'm lifting, that's when it starts to get strong. But again, people don't know that, and nothing wrong with
A
it.
lot of people don't realize that, or you might just hear the part about our muscles tearing,
Mm-hmm.
but like they don't think of the whole rest side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty
That's
too of that.
dude, me too. Me too. I mean, again, this is why like we as humans, it's all of what we're talking about here. If you start to get maybe triggered or you start to like make yourself wrong about, oh, maybe I should be doing that. Look, leave the shoulds aside. Don't should all over yourself because that's never fun. It's don't should all over yourself. Just understand that there's different things for you to learn and then be responsible for the actions you take.
Mm-hmm. Wait, was there more you wanted to say about the yoga stuff? Because there's another topic I kind of want to touch on.
I mean, there's a lot about the yoga stuff, but I'll leave it at this: that our mental health is largely connected to the way in which we treat our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga is a way to integrate them both.
Mm. Where's this studio at?
So it's called Atam, and it's in Delray Beach,
Cool.
Florida.
Nice.
Yeah.
So anyone out there?
Anyone out there, if you're looking for some saunas, they got infrareds. If you're looking for some massage work, if you're looking for some yoga, everything from hatha to raja to kundalini, like there's a lot.
What about fasting?
I mean, bro, I want to talk about fasting. That in itself is another conversation. What about fasting?
What's your experience with it? And maybe like what's something that like you didn't realize in the beginning?
Cool. So I didn't, and it actually connects with the muscle repair. I didn't realize that right now our bodies are actively going through metabolism, and that's right. Like, I mean, if you ate something earlier this morning, you are going to be metabolizing the food. Normal.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize when I first started fasting, and I don't fast consistently. There are periods where I will fast, but I didn't realize that when I was fasting, I was giving my body the natural rest so it could go and take care of maybe some imbalances that were in the way.
Exactly.
This is where a lot of people, when they start to do fasting for on a continuous basis, their health starts to shift completely. Because now, instead of the body focusing 80% of its energy on metabolizing food, it's going into this other area that maybe hasn't been paid attention to because it's been metabolizing food.
Exactly. And back to the whole blood flow and where the blood is being sent to. You know, now it's able to go to these other areas that we may need repairing.
Yep. Yeah, if you're looking to learn more about fasting, he's incredible. The work of Dave Asprey. A lot of his work. Yeah, he's got a phenomenal book. It's somewhere over here. It's called Fast This Way, and it talks about this because
this way.
Fast this way. One of the key things with fasting is people, once they're fasting, maybe they'll integrate food into their body too soon, and maybe it won't be the right kind of food. And this is why some people that fast and then they'll eat pizza. And they're like, oh, my stomach and fasting doesn't work for me. No, it's because you went from fasting to putting in some really harsh things into your body. Of course, your stomach is going to have a response to it.
In my own personal experience, I notice how much I overeat the day after I fast. I eat a normal plate like I normally do. And I'm like, I feel my stomach like, bro, stop. Like, and then I also catch myself like, wanting to finish my entire plate because that's how we're brought up. And just, man, the psychology of food still blows my mind. Like, just to try to think about like, why do I do that? Why do I force myself to finish even like, let's say I have a pack of like Oreos or some shit.
Yep.
Honestly, I can't even eat Oreos anymore because they fuck me up and they're so banging. So like if I eat one, but you know, there'll be one left in the pack. I'll be like, oh, I might as well eat it. There's only one left. And, you know, like my brain, it just like, for some reason, it's just like used to that.
Yep.
Gotta
Yeah.
finish it all.
I mean, bro, if so back in on this conversation of food, there's a book called if you're gonna eat at the refrigerator, pull up a chair. And it talks about understanding the fact that our patterns of food are typically used to suppress emotions. How much food you eat, the kind of food that you eat. Are you really hungry, or are you uncomfortable about something happening in your life that you're now going to turn to, maybe say a bag of potato chips, maybe a pint of ice cream, maybe a thing of pasta. And instead
Yeah.
of focusing on this thing over here that's obviously happening, I'm just going to divert my attention and eat this. I'm going to fill up my body with so much sugar that it's going to just be in this dull place. I'm going to numb myself through food.
Yeah.
And then I'll work with that later down the road.
And this also goes back to the dopamine or whichever chemicals are released when we're eating these foods. Yeah. And also the process of, they even say like the process of going to the store, picking out your favorite ice cream, walking up, like your body is like, oh yes, I'm about to get it. Yeah, the anticipation. Which is crazy to think that like our brain is already getting the stimulation from it. And it's not just food. Just for clarification purposes.
It's so true. And bro, on the anticipation of the body already getting prepared for it, to bring it back to the gut connection, you can start to think about food, a particular kind of food. And just by you thinking about it, your liver starts to release specific chemicals that focus in on that food. You haven't eaten the food, you haven't smelt the food, you just thought about it. So it's really understanding that this thing right here, the gut, they always say, listen to your gut. It's not just a cheesy saying. There's a lot of power and intuition, which comes from the gut. Now you can connect it with the yoga, with the solar plexus. That's a lot of it comes from that. The will, the human will to say, you know what? I'm going to eat maybe half this bag of chips, but not all of it. Not because it's bad for me, but because I choose to not eat the full bag of chips. That's ultimately what we want to get to the point of doing. That's when we're actually choosing to live life instead of life living for us.
And then I feel like everything we've talked about is related pretty much.
Everything.
Because another thing, how we were saying, like similar to like someone in the military being taught to pull the trigger, right? It's like all these companies are trying to like brainwash us or influence us in a certain way. It's food, man, the psychology of food is crazy to think about. Like when you learn that like not McDonald's, they do this too though, or Disney is what I was gonna say, how they push certain smells your way, so you crave the French fries, and now you're like, oh, I wasn't even hungry, but they smell so good, like little tricks like that. Or even another one, this is really what sparked it for me was like there's that weed strain Girl Scout cookies, and it becomes the biggest strain ever, right? And I think partially part of it is that like we all love Girl Scout cookies, like the actual cookies. So our brain is like, Girl Scout, you know what I mean? And we see it on medicine, like cherry flavor or cotton candy flavor this, or we see it in perfumes, and like it's literally a marketing tool because it's so deep in our brain, so primitive.
It's so primitive, dude. It's so funny. On this note, which also mine gut, there is, Dove, the soap company.
Yeah.
Now there's one, and I just saw it the other day after so, which I thought was hysterical. But there's a bottle that says now helps out with your microbiome. It doesn't. But guess what? For someone that is just getting introduced to the conversation, that maybe is a lot of people, I'm gonna see that on this soap. Okay, I'm gonna buy it. But the science,
it's a key word, right?
It's a key word. It's trendy, and it's gonna get me to potentially buy it just because it's on the packaging.
I mean, even with like these kombuchas, you see like there's so many like pre-bottled ones.
Yeah.
That I feel like most of them can't be as healthy as they claim to be.
I mean, dude, unfortunately, with a lot of food out there, all of the things that we see on, let's see if this has anything. So this is just a thing of water, literally just water in a cardboard, which is funny. If we take a look at the things on the side of the food packaging with the amount of ingredients and the amount of vitamins and all that, there's no organization that is out there actually checking that.
Yeah.
The FDA does exist, but they don't check that. They don't check that. No, kombucha is a great example because people with kombucha is like, oh, but it says it's got only 12 grams of sugar. Do you know that though? Because they can put that on there. And there isn't, think about all the products that exist in the marketplace. Too many. There isn't an organization that's going out there and checking every single ingredient. And
Good point.
unfortunately, I'm sorry to be the person to say, but the FDA is not regulating that. No, it's just created to create a fund of money. And it is what it is. Like, nothing wrong with it. It just is what it is.
And they have their own loopholes.
Too many. Yes, sir. Too many.
So, all right. So I think we should wrap things up. Going a little further than I think both of us expected. We might need a part 2, but
Yes.
to end it off, is there any resources or like podcast books that you could recommend?
100%. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for things like getting deep into health, understanding the work of Zach Bush, that man has been doing a lot of work. Started out with cancer back in the 70s, realized a lot through mushrooms, not psilocybin, but just regular mushrooms and the benefit that it has. And fast forward now, his whole focus is on regenerative farming, making sure that the food that we're eating is actually containing the right nutrients and is actually nutrient dense instead of nutrient lacking, which is unfortunately a lot of the food that we eat. So that's a huge resource if we're going to talk about health in itself. If we want to talk about things like mental health, the work of Time Bailu, the work of RB Marcus, there's so much that is right now happening with mental health that everybody, we talk about trendy, mental health is one of those things that's trendy at the moment, which, hey, God bless. I'm glad. It's bittersweet to see our clinics with the amount of people that they see coming into the actual practice. Bitter because of the amount, sweet because of they're actually seeking support. There's people that don't go to therapy because they're afraid of what their neighbors may say if they ever saw them walk out of a therapist office.
Yeah, which I think part of that stigma is starting to
It's starting to lift
a little bit, but
100%. I mean, bro, when you see someone like Simone Biles literally walking away from her biggest jump at the Olympics because of her mental health, that opened up a huge avenue for someone that's at home to say, okay, maybe it's okay for me to not do this and actually go see a therapist.
All right, man. I think on that note, we should just end it there before we start going
Let's
off again.
Let's end it there. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely need to do this again, man.
Oh, for sure. Hey, for everybody watching, thank you guys for listening. Again, it's a conversation that obviously took a life of its own. And I'll say it again, don't take what I say as being truth. I will never say that. What I'm saying is not the answer to anything. It's just questioning. And I invite you to do that. Question everything. Really start to get into that place of question, not from a skeptical standpoint, but from an open-minded standpoint. So you can actually take in new information instead of being like this with new information.
Exactly. Yeah. And before you sign off, let me know where we could like follow, all these projects that you're a part of.
Sure. So the best way is Instagram. That really is my main hub between Instagram and Facebook, and it's Sebs_Yepes through Instagram.
All right, good. All right, bro. Definitely do this again. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Much love. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you taking the time to put these interviews together, bring on the different people that you're bringing. You've always been someone that's so focused on entrepreneurship, building your stuff with music, which I've always been a huge fan of and continue to be. And I'm just really grateful for the work that you continue to do, bro. There's a lot that you're doing now that down the road, you're going to be really grateful for, and other people will be really grateful for.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I always appreciate our conversations. I'm glad that we finally got one on the podcast.
Yes, sir. Me too.
Sorry, man. I'll catch you later, and peace out, everybody.
See ya.